Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two people who I consider among the smartest people in the whole music industry, not just this room. And they are with me today to discuss their respective roles in a seminal event that took place 32 years ago, which changed the entire game of music distribution. And that event was the very first download of a song. Trust me, I will promise you will leave here today smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And also, this is very important. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. And by the way, that goes for you too, speakers. Make sure your chat is set to address everyone too. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not continue to do this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and my favorite industry podcast, Unlimited Supply. Sorry, Larry, I had to give a shout out to my buddy Lars there.
Understood.
So let's get down to business. In today's host seat is my good friend, Larry Miller. He is a professor of music business at NYU, where he is the inaugural executive director of the Sony Audio Institute for Music Business and Technology. Larry's a music and technology entrepreneur, investor, advisor, and producer, and the host of the Musonomics podcast. He advises music creators and rights holders, valuation, public policy, and litigation. He founded and operated Or Music, a Grammy-winning independent record label and music publisher where he signed, recorded, and published multi-platinum artists, including Los Lonely Boys and Matsuhasu. He was also vice president of marketing and development at AT&T Labs Research, where he was co-founder of AT&T A2B Music, and began his career as a radio DJ in Boston, then at NBC Radio Entertainment and WHTZ Z100 in New York during its historic worst-to-first run in the country's most competitive radio market. Larry is a Music Business Association Music Business Educator of the Year, a proud board member of the Newport Festivals Foundation and the Louis Armstrong House Museum. He's also a Clio Award-winning voice actor. Welcome back, Larry. It is such an honor to have you with us today.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, everybody.
And joining Larry as today's featured guest is my good friend and industry mentor, Jim Griffin. His career started at a modern digital Knight Ridder newsroom in Lexington, Kentucky at the Herald Leader, a stint that included extensive work in negotiations and on the effects of digital archives on libraries and the work of librarians. This took him to Washington, D.C. and the Newspaper Guild, where he served for a decade as the international representative, negotiating contracts for journalists and media employees. Offered the opportunity to bring digitization to popular music, he relocated to West Hollywood, California to become Geffen's first chief technology officer, where in June 1994, the label released online the first full-length single, Aerosmith's Head First. Downloads led to streaming and law enabling licensed digital streaming. Jim helped write the law and testified before Congress on pricing and rules. Today, Jim continues to offer advice and strategy on digital media and teaches classes at numerous universities and colleges. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars back to our platform today. Take it away, gentlemen.
Well, hello, everybody. I guess I get to ask the first question, and maybe to start with a statement, and that is that Jim wasn't just present at the birth of digital music, he really helped create it. And almost every issue that the industry faces today, AI, streaming economics, copyright, metadata, licensing, questions about the value and future of record labels, all have roots in problems that Jim, in particular, was thinking about over 3 decades ago. And you heard in Tom's intro a little bit about the path that Jim took to get to Geffen, where he really drove that very first music download. But let's set the Wayback Machine for June 27th, 1994. We had a 4.3 megabyte wave file. We had 14.4 modems. We had a download that was being hosted on CompuServe that took over 90 minutes to download if you were lucky. And thinking back, it feels kind of inevitable, and it certainly didn't feel inevitable then. But Jim, take us back to that day, and why Aerosmith, why Head First, and why Geffen Records?
I owe it all to my mother. She worked for AT&T.
Get out.
She was the head of training for Illinois Bell. And she said to me, well, someday your music interest might coincide with what I do. And I very much took that to heart. And when I went to West Hollywood to work for Geffen, I thought it would be great to make that happen, to be able to deliver a full-length sound recording over the telephone system. Now, at the time, that was how it was going to happen, because there was no internet, really. I mean, there was an internet, no question, technically, but the average person didn't have access to it. They had to go through an intermediary like America Online or CompuServe, which was what we did. And that involved a telephone. And sometimes it meant putting a telephone into a pair of cups on top of a table, literally speaking through the receiver. The data flowing back and forth, or, of course, plugging into the phone jack in the wall. But it really had to do with the phone system. And there, Larry was prescient. He was at AT&T, convincing them of the same thing my mother told me. And she happened to be visiting me in West Hollywood at the time. And I thought, I really want to show my mom I was listening. And so we put together the song. We got it ready to roll. It was an internal thing. I wish I could take credit for it. I really do. But there's no way a guy new to the record company could make anything happen. You had to give credit to the people who ran the company, and I do. Jim Walker was the chief financial officer of the company at the time. And a lot of my job in the early days was simply to listen to him tell me about the business and what were his concerns as the CFO. And one of his greatest concerns, and it's still a concern today, was the price of promotion. The cost of promoting music at radio. He gave me a figure at the time. I don't know if it's accurate or true, and I'm not standing by it, but he said, Jim, I budget about $250,000 every time we release a single for radio airplay, meaning we had to buy radio airplay. And he said, if there's any way you can get us around that to get music out to be heard by the public, that'd be fantastic. And I got to thinking, we could do what my mom said. We could deliver music over the phone system. That could eventually happen. People could use their computers as a part of their stereo system. And so there was that thinking. And that was what motivated what happened those 32 years ago. But
Jim,
Larry, you were there. You know that whole thing.
Well, I did not know about your personal history around AT&T, and I wonder if that's why you agreed to take the meeting with Howie Singer and me back,
Maybe.
Right around that time.
I thought it might have been a requirement. My mother had what was called, and you'll react to this, a Class A concession under the AT&T rules. So we had so many phones. In some rooms, we had 2 phones. So in some ways, I felt obligated.
All right. So there was this idea to use this telecommunications network as a way to help deliver music and maybe reduce the marketing cost for singles, right?
Yeah, to do it for the marketing people. A lot of my power came from working with people at the company who had plans, and amongst them were people like Robert Smith, the head of marketing, and Robin Sloan, who was the chief creative officer at Geffen. And they loved the idea, and they put people on it who said, "Look, I got to follow through on this. We got to make it happen."
Did David Geffen ever weigh in on that?
No, of course not. I wouldn't even begin to try to bullshit you about that. I mean, it's not like he had a computer on his desk or that he was motivated through personal use. A great guy, amazing person to work for, wholly endorse it. But no, David was not digitally savvy and paying attention to these things.
Okay. Why Aerosmith then, and why Head First of all things?
John Klodner, terrific A&R guy, working with Aerosmith for a long time. He felt very strongly that it should be Aerosmith. And in many ways, it was quantitative. The length of the track that was selected to be used. There were a number of tracks put in front of us to use, but the one that was the briefest had the highest likelihood of success.
Right. So the song was short, so the download time would be
You got it.
Would be less.
90 minutes, seriously.
Oh boy. Talk about CompuServe, Jim. Why CompuServe? What was CompuServe in 1994? Just
It was
set the stage a little
indistinguishable.
bit.
It was indistinguishable from a tax preparation company.
What do you mean?
I mean, it was all about data and numbers and people logging on with computers and so forth. It wasn't the sort of place you'd go for a good Saturday night or even a good Tuesday night. It was quantitative. People with computers, which were a very select group of people.
So this is before the World Wide Web. It was before we even
Way before the World Wide Web.
No graphical user interfaces.
No World Wide Web. Graphical user interfaces, new thing at the time.
Right. And
That was a theory on how to bring people to the computer.
okay. So for this seminal event, how many downloads did you get?
Oh, at least a dozen from various people at the company saying, "Oh, I'd like to use this. Let's try this." And we picked the Aerosmith one, prepared it. It sounded good, worked. That was the key part, worked, and seemed like it would work for anyone. We tested it on people who had no technology at all, background at all, and they were able to do it. Again, it was people who'd never done this before. It hadn't happened before, so we needed some way to make it easy. And so one of the tricks was we made it a WAV file so that all you had to do was touch it or double click on it and it would start playing.
Right. So it was a WAV file, which was a lot heavier, a lot bigger in terms of the packet
It
size
was, yeah.
than MP3. But we should
Yeah.
talk about MP3.
No question about that. You're right.
In that era. And did you think about using
No
MP3?
question I thought about it. And I'll tell you why. Because Michael Robertson was on the telephone almost every day wanting to talk about it. And I indulged him.
Right.
Learned a lot from him.
As early as 94.
Yes.
Okay. So here we were thinking about using music downloads as a way to get music out there, not so much as a way to cannibalize the existing industry at that point, or to use another popular
we
term
would
of
have
the era.
happily cannibalized. We'd eat anybody's revenue.
I guess I want to ask about the discussions that I know were underway on the fall list, or at least, what would become the fall list at that time, about the era that was foreseeable, although the technology wasn't in place yet to do it. And that was the years that we were all talking about and thinking about the celestial jukebox, which I think was your terminology, Jim.
Well, I may have picked it up from somebody else who kept asking about it. I mean, that was part of the charm, was that once you were known for being interested in this topic, so many people would reach out and call or visit. They would just walk in the door and want to talk about it. It's how I met you, Larry, and so many other people who showed up, wanted to talk about it, called on the phone. It led me to say to the average person, just meet me on Sunday at 87 in Chinatown. I'll be there at noon. I'll buy you lunch. And a lot of people started doing it.
And so, for those who may not be familiar with the Fa List, uh, what is it and how long has it been running?
Listserv. Got to be 25 years now at this point, maybe 32. Started right after the download or the song was made available. And it's because there was just no time in the day to deal with all the people who were coming by. Just tell them, let's all meet together on Sunday at lunch, and I'll buy you lunch.
A to B Music at that time was a business that Howie Singer and I were operating in that was really a science project at AT&T Labs Research that we were given a relatively short leash to turn into an actual business. We were not alone at that point in time. There were lots of technology companies, large ones, and startups that were also interested in either building a market by asking for forgiveness rather than permission, or doing it the way that we were mostly doing it at A to B Music, as an AT&T project. Of course, we needed to ask for permission first rather than forgiveness in order to obtain the licenses that we or anybody would have needed in order to make distribution and sale of music downloads widely available. What do you remember, Jim, about that time, about the competition that existed, and about the, let's call them responsible experiments that were happening across the companies?
What I remember was my belief that it was all about drawing a crowd. And we were using the music to draw a crowd so that they could hear it. And others wanted to use us to draw a crowd to whatever they were doing. And so this was really the point, was how can I get the public's attention? And I had the irrational bravado that how could somebody do it better than Geffen? We had the music people wanted to hear. We had Nirvana, we had Guns N' Roses, we had one band after another that people really wanted to hear. So if you had the content in your pocket, the rest would be simple.
Right. Now, there were other responsible experiments happening, and other
Capital, EMI, yeah,
right. BMG, Sony. Some of the people at what was in the beginning of during this period, MCA and later Universal, I think, are on the call, and shout outs to those who were sitting in those chairs at the label at that time. I think about Albie and Larry at Universal.
I'm wearing my hair for Albie today.
I think about Liz Heller at Capitol, and everybody else who came later on at EMI. Jay Sammet, of course. Ted Cohen was there for a while. Kevin Conroy at BMG. Fred Ehrlich and Al Smith at Sony. And yeah. Paul Vidic and the gang at Warner Music Group. Who am I missing? I'm sure I'm missing some who might actually be here, and maybe those of you on the chat can remember some of the people in the companies that were responsible for partnering with the tech companies. But some of the other things that were happening around that time were, really the beginning of music on the internet. Right around the time that Jim shepherded the Aerosmith download, IUMA was happening, the Internet Underground Music Archive, mostly for independents, right?
Right. That was the scary part, was that
So,
you might not need a record company.
so,
You, you, you could go do something like Ayuma and get traction. And if the public loved it, they could get the music without going to a record store.
e-music started, within a year, sort of in the middle of 1995,
Bob Cohn, yeah.
right? Do you remember what was scary to the record companies about e-music, especially?
Well, I mean, the scary part was that people could route right around you.
Right, people could write around you, and they were offering up non-DRM'd MP3s for sale, right? Which sounds today preposterous. Like why would somebody pay for a clear text MP3 file? And yet, that was a thing. Liquid Audio was founded in 1996, and of course later went public in 1999. And there were countless panels that many of you on the chat, and in fact, you too were there for many of them, Jim, that we had between and among A to B Music and Liquid Audio and eMusic and of course our friend Michael Robertson at MP3.com, who had at the time the most successful, not just music, but technology IPO that had happened up until 1999, when I remember on the day that they went public, the company stock was, or at least the valuation of the company was, I think, something around $7 billion briefly. But it was a pretty heady time to be running a project. Whether you were running a project or a business that was looking for partnership and cooperation from the music companies, and in particular the major music companies, or not. What else do you remember, Jim, about those years post the Aerosmith download at Geffen, what eventually became Universal, and at the other majors? How do you think about that time?
Albie and Larry.
Say why.
Inseparable. All I have to do is say Albie and Larry, and you react, because you don't say, well, who do you mean? Albie Galutin, Larry Kenswell? Yeah, of course, that's who I mean. And it's because they had bought Geffen, Universal had, and they felt ownership of it. And yet, my bosses, people at Geffen, did not feel owned by Universal. In fact, they felt that whatever Universal wanted them to be doing was exactly the opposite of what they wanted to do. So in order to please my handlers, I would turn them away. And that led to a great deal of anger. And I can appreciate why, and I remember it, and I humored these people and did my very best to listen and understand, but it was very, very contentious.
Fast forward a few years, of course, Napster, LimeWire, and Grokster, and the peer-to-peer file trading era happens. And iTunes happens. And as it turns out, the download era is a transitory time.
Yeah, preceded by home taping, of course.
Preceded by home taping, right. When we think about that time, the download era, what did we get right? Did we get anything right?
Oh, I think what we got right is that music does draw a crowd. And it mixes with technology to do so.
And what did we miss? And I mean the royal we here. Everyone who was in the larger, nascent digital music community then. What did we miss?
I think we thought that it had to be wrapped up in a business plan. And I don't think it did. I think these basic motivations, the drawing of a crowd, and if you've got a crowd, it can be monetized. Anybody who's run a festival knows that. Once you've got them, they will part with their money when they're there. And then working with that as a fundamental force seems right. In a way, it's like radio. Radio was free. And of course, they made a great deal of money.
Yes.
They found ways to monetize it. And that precedes all of this, because it's not as if music was only available on discs or tapes or whatever, and you had to fork money over the counter to buy it. We concluded that you had to hear music in order to decide to part with your money to purchase it. And our investments were into those formats. For example, we had to pay a year in advance for pressing capacity.
Right.
And anticipate what needed to be pressed, and then press those records and put them in locations where they could be quickly accessed during the holidays, or we would leave a great deal of money on the table.
That's right.
So it was about a logistics business. We were in the product business, and now, Larry, we're in the service business.
We are. And before we get there, I want to just spend a little bit more time back in the late 90s and early 2000s and ask what you thought when Napster launched and you saw the music industry's reaction. First, what did you think on the day or in the weeks after Napster launched?
Larry, to me, art is anarchy. And this simply reinforced that. Art is anarchy. It's anarchistic. People see it as an expression, as freedom. That's why it's covered by the First Amendment and considered untouchable. It's so important to the human psyche that they have freedom. And anything that looks to restrict that is not going to play well with the public.
And so do you think that, friction,
Yeah.
rights management, I don't mean digital rights management, but the ownership of intellectual property is, certainly IP issues and the whole question of fair use are very much in the news today with the AI cases. But do you think that the AI the AI era that we are still at the beginning of now in music is more disruptive than what we all lived through, 25 plus years ago?
I don't think it's more disruptive. I think it's in the same way it's disruptive because it's us that fails to catch on or understand. And I'll say this, there are bigger surprises ahead than AI. AI is merely one step on the stairs that we're on. There are bigger issues ahead of us, and they'll be still more remarkable to us in their impact, in their breadth, in their scope.
Well, I kind of feel like my follow-up to that question ought to be the last question that we talk about on this Smartest People in the Room. But since you brought it up, what comes after AI?
Well, I'm not saying it's after, because it may not be a strict timeline, but quantum communications are going to rock our world.
In what ways?
Well, in so many ways, and we're going to find out, of course, but to some degree, it may be impossible to make them conditional, or it may be very easy to make them conditional. DRM may be a feature of quantum communications, or it may be a negative. But we are headed into a world of quantum communications and quantum technology developments. Now, the Chinese recently invested $20 billion into quantum communications of the teleportation variety. Teleportation. Now that, I'm not going to defend that. I don't foresee teleportation during my lifetime. But I'll be honest with you, we did not see streaming as our future either. That's why we did a download. Streaming would in some ways have been easier if we knew that everyone had enough bandwidth. We would say, stream it, just click and hear.
But nobody had sufficient bandwidth for that.
No, they did not. But it took a stretch to believe that they were going to go out and sign up and pay $100 a month for bandwidth. And enough of it that it would be that fast.
By the way, I just have to say some quick shout outs. There are way too many people on the chat to call out individually, but right now on my chat window, I see hello to Sam Tall and Lisa Ferris and Brian Disk and Charlie Daytree and Kelly Richards. Wow,
These are people I love. And by the way, you can see why I would say, meet me on Sunday. I'll buy you lunch, because these were great people to come. I didn't need to go to music conferences. They came to my office. And I'd say, let's go over to Fun, have a bowl of soup.
Jim, let's dial it back from quantum computing back to the issues that we were facing at the turn of the century. And
I want to be clear for a second.
Yeah.
It's not going to require the arrival of quantum computing. We don't need quantum computers to have quantum communication. Quantum communication exists separate and distinct from the arrival of quantum processors and quantum computers. It's simply quantum mechanics. It's part of the building blocks of the universe. If you split a photon, the two pieces remain connected wherever in the universe they go.
Forgive me for asking what kinds of use cases or features that might enable when it comes to music, but I'll ask.
Interstellar communications, having a net that can go anywhere in the universe instantly. Now, Einstein had a phrase for this. SPAAD, spooky action at a distance. That's what Einstein called it. He couldn't comprehend it or explain it that well. I can't do better than Einstein, but reading him led me to this.
I kind of feel like hearkening back to some of the music industry issues that we were all struggling with around the turn of the century is a bit of a come down after your last statement about Einstein. But were there lessons that we all learned from Napster that maybe maybe we would do well to remember now as we struggle with this next phase, this next iteration of the development of music, and I guess more broadly entertainment that is really enabled by all kinds of AI offerings. And I don't just mean 100% AI created things, but given that there cannot be a music industry conversation in 2026 without mentioning it. What is it that we lived through and learned then and might do well to remember today, if anything?
One word: licensing.
Say more about that.
There's a price. You can monetize a car accident, for God's sakes, with insurance. If you have a license, you're okay. And licensing is the key. Pool of money with a fair split will incentivize people to do anything, even look the other way from a car accident. So if you can license anarchy in the form of a car accident, you can license anything on a network.
Right. So it is not just that the music industry or the majors, some of them in particular, broadly speaking, are allergic to AI applications. What they are allergic to is not getting paid.
Well, they have a funny way of showing it, because I'll point this out. That is, radio still doesn't pay for the use of sound recording. We have a funny way of licensing that we can't even get radio to pay for the use of sound recordings. We pay radio. They don't pay us. That shows how little we know about monetization.
I hope I live long enough to see the terrestrial radio exemption done away with here.
It should happen now, because the topic now is that Europe has finally had enough. They say, we're not giving American artists money from our radio stations if they're not going to collect from their radio stations. And so reciprocity is the key to this debate about $300 million that's owed to American artists from European broadcasters.
Well, maybe it will finally happen, and and I think most of the people that are listening in today are familiar enough uh, with this issue and are probably on the same side that you and I are, Jim, about wanting that exemption for sound recordings in public performance for terrestrial radio only in the United States only, really, at least in terms of developed markets with advanced IP protection, to go the way of the horse and buggy, perhaps.
Licensing.
Licensing. So I'm sure you have a an opinion about the lawsuits that are the mirror image lawsuits that the industry launched against both Suno and Udio, with some settlement happening and some negotiations ongoing. What is your opinion about the use of litigation to try and force a license to happen?
It's going to lead to a pool of money and a fair split. And that will be effectively a license, whether it's dictated by a court or by statute. Congress will step in at some point to try to equalize that across the spectrum.
Can I ask? I have a couple of kind of economic questions for you, Jim. And I know that you think deeply about this stuff. And I wonder why, with music now for many, many years, running abundant, like running water, as David Bowie once said, why has music become so abundant while creator income, and we could talk, I suppose, about creator income being unequal in terms of the splits between record companies and publishers and songwriters and performing artists, but while income remains scarce, more music is being created than ever before, and yet not so with income. How do you think about that?
It connects us. It's an emotional connection that we have, and we're addicted to that. So monetizing it should not be too difficult, given that we are addicted to it.
With streaming, the celestial jukebox, Jim, as successful or at least as deeply penetrated as it is throughout so much of the world now, do we call streaming a success story?
I think we just say that it's a logical progression from distribution to delivery. Why did music not become a download activity? And why did it become streaming? Because again, it was not about downloading. It was not about taking possession of a song. It was about the just-in-time arrival of customized music. That beat out downloading because delivery always beats distribution in efficiency.
Right. Access always beats ownership.
Yes. And so that was a logical progression. Very logical.
So if we were going to...
By the way, obviates piracy. Why, if you don't want to take...
Say more about that.
I think it's that to really get at what we call piracy, we had to deal with the motive for piracy, which was to take possession of the song. We obviated their desire to have and hold it by making it available wherever they were and whenever they wanted it. So why would you want to download it or go to the trouble of carrying it around on your hard drive?
Right. And of course, there was the whole issue of what was in the bundle, right? What was in the vinyl album bundle, the digital album bundle in the form of the...
Make the product better.
Of the CD. And really what I want to get to here is the unbundling of the 1698 CD album and the availability of the 99-cent single, really, as being just a critical development in the unbundling and reconstruction in this century of music industry economics.
Yeah, it needed to address the very motive for piracy,
Mm,
the very desire to have and hold the music and to take possession of it.
right. Although,
Because as long as they wanted to, they could. They could tape it off the radio if they wanted and then play it whenever they would like.
yes, although, in an imperfect sound carrier,
Oh,
I suppose.
I think that's lost on the average person who's listening on a car radio.
Mm, hmm Uh, let me ask about.
That's another episode of where
Yeah,
did the stereo stores go? Where are the hi-fi stores?
right, right. Well, where are the hi-fi stores? I was in one the other day. I mean, I'm sort of in the
In
market
Manhattan.
now.
Yeah.
In Manhattan. Okay, fair enough. You're
There are
right.
there are Lamborghini stores in Manhattan.
You're right. You got me. Okay, here's a question, Jim. As you have been as close of an observer as anyone regarding the fits and starts, the comings and goings, the deal announcements that fizzled, and the new products launches that were transformative, whether disruptive or not. In particular, the ones that the major music companies have partnered with over these last decades. If you were in the chair today as CTO or head of technology strategy at a major music company, Geffen was part of a major music company.
Nobody better
and
than
still
Michael
is.
Nash. No, nobody better than Michael Nash. Nash can do it.
Well, not to be personal,
No, I admire
Mike,
him. I do.
right, right, and he's done great.
He
But
has.
if you were given a fixed bucket of $100 million today, not $100 billion,
You'd need one.
but if you were given a fund of $100 million today, what would you in the context of music investing? What would you invest in?
I I doubt it would be music.
What if you had to?
If you had to. Well, it would definitely be deeply connected with advertising and relationships, which
Say
people
more about
resent.
that.
It's all about connections, very human connections with brands and ideas and things that people need or don't need. It's about bridging that divide. And it was for Geffen when we did the track. It was because reaching people was extremely expensive. I mean, to get $250,000 for a track at the time, it doesn't seem like much now. But in order to get people to hear Aerosmith, which people wanted to hear, you had to pay six figures to get it on the airwaves.
I want to spend our last 5 or 10 minutes together talking about the industry as it
I'll
might,
sign up for that.
as it might evolve. But before we get there, I want to go to a question that Michael Robertson has posted here on the chat about AI songs. And he asks which AI songs will have royalty obligations in the future, given that the Copyright Office says that AI music, and I guess the implication is that 100% AI music is not copyrightable. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, again, if that's the rule they're going to make and stand by, then we'll have to respect it. But I would say that it's unlikely that it'll be a 0 or a 1, that it'll be all AI or not any AI at all.
Right, and in fact, most professional music creators that I talk to anyway are using AI tools in
Sure.
the efficient operation of their businesses, and mostly not relying on 100% AI creation.
And music will use it too.
So what about labeling? there's the labeling story
Absolutely
of last
critical.
week.
I've spent many years of my life on this. You can't even convince the music business to have a database of music. And it would seem that you would need a database in order to allocate the rewards uh, fairly. And of course, it's not allocated fairly, and that's part of the reason we don't have a database. But there is a resistance to these very basic things at the music industry level, unfortunately.
So we've seen a lot of things come and go in the 32 years since that first Aerosmith download. Uh, Looking out 32 more years from today, that would be what, 2058? What do you think will seem primitive in 2058?
Oh,
With
laws, national laws governing music. It'll be interstellar. Do you go out past the fifth planet from the sun in order to set up your file sharing service? I'm not sure, but it will be interstellar. And I say that partly because of quantum communication.
will we have interstellar intellectual property protection?
This will be the question. Jurisdiction and boundaries.
What about labels? Since the first Aerosmith download at Geffen Records, people have been asking out loud, what is the value of a label? How do labels create value in the digital music era? And, the answer evolves over time. I think that, the best labels do indeed create value much of the time for much of their partners, but not always. And how do you think record labels evolve over the next 3 decades? Will they still exist?
Yes, in the way they are now. I say that because there will always be value in drawing a crowd. And they'll increasingly know how to draw that crowd with their music and allocate it to do that.
And perhaps they will look more like the artist and label services businesses that have started to emerge today, that all of the majors have begun to offer one way or another.
Yeah, we'll go through a stage of channelization, much as we have with video. I think video will lead the way because it does attract the eye and the human to a great degree. And so there will be a channelization along that road.
Jim, separate from interstellar communications, what is the one prediction that you would make that you would be willing to stake the Jim Griffin brand on?
I wish I had a brand. It would be eat pho. The rise of Asia makes me know that pho is definitely a part of our future.
Wow.
I mean, when I went to Hollywood, I'd had pho right before I left Washington, D.C., and it was so good, I wanted to find more of it. And eventually I did find a pho kitchen and invite people to come have some with me. And that was the smartest thing I ever did, was invite your crowd in and build relationships with them. When I look at this chat list, it's a list of people who came to Pho 87, and I love that. They've all had soup with me, and we had wonderful conversations, and I admire them to this day.
32 years ago, Jim, you launched that seminal first major label digital download, or really digital download, I think, of any variety.
Had to happen.
Looking back, was that the beginning of the digital music business, or was it something else? I mean, it was a really important milestone.
In retrospect, it was, but at the time you couldn't have put your finger on it and said that. I mean, you were smart enough to see that, Larry, but I would say not everyone understood that. In fact, most people would have bet against it because they did. They were skeptical. They didn't think this was how people would be using music. It was a joke in Hollywood. that's people sometimes told. It's that classic thing
Say more about that.
where people laughed and said, "Oh, music, the computer." No, no, no. Who has a computer in their car? I mean, when I went to Finland to work with Nokia, people said the same thing about cell phones for a while, which is almost humorous because you can laugh and look around you and know the answer to that question instantly.
Right. And of course, I remember when many of us had Nokia phones.
Yes, it was very important back then. I went to Finland with a friend of mine, a film director, and we thought, let's go cold call Nokia. Let's go knock on the front door. And we found this huge gray building out in the middle of nowhere, and they had doors that went up like 2 stories. And we knocked on that door, could hardly hear us, and had no idea who we were, and we had no idea who they were, but it led to a fast friendship. And when you make Finnish friends, you make friends forever.
It sounds like, Jim, the way you describe it, the knocking on the door at Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz.
It felt like that. And I would say, in retrospect, it was a very smart thing to do. It was good to go there, cross the borders, meet new people, get different crowds. This, I think, is the thing you're looking for, which is, what is it that I learned from that could apply to anyone in the audience? And it is draw a crowd, share good times with people, communicate with them, build lists of them, and share information like we are now. I'm very impressed that Tom Truitt does this on a regular basis, and I wish I could be here every single time he does it because I think it's terrific.
And he's done it hundreds of times.
He has. And I love that.
So Tom, great respect to you for the consistency and the discipline that you have undertaken, and we know what it takes to pull anything good together ever, but to do it over a long period of time as you have. Well, hats off to Tom Truitt.
Anybody who's got an idea, call Tom Truitt with it, because it will get around and it will be better than it was before you did it.
Wow. That's very strong praise from two people I respect greatly. Thank you for that. Before we part ways, there's a few questions that we haven't gotten to in the chat that I'm going to pose to both of you. Larry, here's one from our good friend Jerry Limbo. Jerry wants to know, as the professor of music business at NYU, what is the most asked question regarding the future of the business by your students? Inquiring minds want to know, especially young inquiring minds.
There are so many questions that they have. Let me give you some of them.
Okay.
Who will pay my tuition?
Who will pay my tuition? Right. But beyond that, they ask, how did this business evolve to look the way that it looks? I mean, who in their right mind would design something that looks like this?
They weren't in their right minds.
They ask that question. Another question that almost all of them ask is, where can I work? Where can I intern? What activities outside the classroom should I undertake in order to either become employable or to gain what they think of as sufficient experience to be able to go out and build for themselves a sustainable music career? I'll say that again, a sustainable music career, because many of them are music creators. Others of them do this, Jerry and everyone, because they, like us when we were their age, can't imagine taking a breath in what they imagine as their early professional career without being utterly immersed in and engaged in this task of music creation, amplifying things that you love, and being around like-minded people. That's the thing that motivates most of them.
Or people who don't think like us. Like when I met Mo Austin, I realized he didn't think like me and I didn't think like him. But his approval of this idea said to me, oh, it's got to be a great idea. Mo Austin, giant.
It sure meant a lot.
And he told me, work with Luke Wood. Luke Wood helped make this happen.
Well, speaking of making this happen, Howie Singer, who's near and dear to all of our hearts, asked a question.
Love him.
Did anyone decide they needed to ask the artists for their okay to use the song? In other words, in the Aerosmith camp?
Sure. Went to the A&R guy for the band. He was in charge of that relationship and he wanted it.
A&R guy for the band.
Artiste and repertoire, he was assigned on behalf of Geffen to deal with Aerosmith.
Got it. So he got the approval from the band.
In the music business, that's how it works. You have an A&R guy on behalf of the label who goes out and makes relationships with the talent and prepares their work for distribution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Larry, final question for you. You asked Jim a really interesting question a moment ago, and that is, what prediction would he stake his brand on? I'm not going to let you get away without answering.
Turnabout. Reciprocity.
What would it be, Larry?
Labels aren't going away. Collective rights administration is not going away, and copyright itself is not going away. However, the forms that those agreements and services take, I'll bet within the next 10 years will be unrecognizable from what those businesses and business relationships look like today.
So, in other words, they're going to continue to evolve with the times. They will begin to put language in those contracts to reflect what's going on technologically.
And as a way to create value for the music creators of the future. After all, I think that's how, I think that's still how they make a living.
Yeah.
Now, that's one perspective. I mean, there is a downside, and there is another perspective on especially major label operators and owners of enormous music catalogs. But I'll leave that to another smartest people in the room to sort out.
All right, I'm gonna take a quick detour, and Jim, I want to ask you a question that is sort of at the root of all of this today, and that is, tell the audience about the decision that was made somewhere in the halls of record labels to not copyright protect the content that went onto CDs. In other words, how did they not watermark the actual CD to prevent the duplication of that?
Well, those are two different things, watermarking, copywriting.
Okay, well,
You cannot fail to copyright something because it is automatically covered by copyright.
yeah, sorry about that. Wrong use of the word. Watermark. Why did they let the genie out of the bottle?
Well, you'd have to ask yourself, what would they have done? What watermarking would have mattered? And would it have mattered if a track downloaded from Napster was watermarked? I mean, would that make any difference? It's like engraving your social security number on your bicycle in case it's lost or stolen. It's not going to keep it from getting lost or stolen.
So the music industry could have prevented the duplication of CDs. No?
No, I think not.
Really?
This format is unconditional.
Yes, there was no copy protection in the Red Book audio standard.
Right.
Why not?
Simply wasn't a part of it.
Seems like a big miss.
I asked Mo that question, by the way, and he said none of us at the time thought about it.
Right. Well, anyway, folks, it is time to wrap up. Let me simply say this. You two are truly two of the smartest people I've ever met, and I so have enjoyed our friendship and our professional association. Having you here today is an honor. The audience obviously loved it. So many old friends in the audience today, so many smartest people, alumni in the audience today. Thank you for coming, guys. Thanks for paying attention. And keep coming back. We're here almost every Thursday, except not next Thursday, because Larry and I are going to be heading to Newport Folk Festival. And if any of you are going to be there, please
See you there.
I've got tickets that are available too. But nonetheless,
Thank you sincerely for having me.
hey, thank you for everything you've done for the business and for this community and for me personally, Jim Griffin.
Quantum communications, Tom Truitt. Plastics.
Okay, that's over my pay grade, but I'll start looking into it.
Okay.
Later.
Great to be with you all.
Thank you.